What is up, home workout and bodyweight exercise fans? In today's video from Mind to Muscle, I'll be giving you mind to muscle techniques you can use during dips in order to stimulate more chest activation. Now, why are mind to muscle techniques important? Well, it's essential when you're doing an exercise if you want to stimulate hypertrophy, muscle growth, to produce enough of muscle tension. Why? Well, because your body doesn't really care how many repetitions you do if you don't get enough of that muscle tension. So, I've made more videos on this, and I would urge you to start with a more simple exercise such as push-ups if this is the first time you're hearing about mind to muscle techniques. So I'll link the video above. If you have a slight idea of what mind to muscle techniques are, we can continue and practice these on the dips. So in this video, I'll be giving you 6 tips you can apply during dips in order to maximize muscle tension. Let's get started with tip number 1, and that's scapular retraction and depression. Now, what the hell does that mean? That's just a fancy way of me saying, roll your shoulders back and down. What this does is it opens up the chest and it basically brings your scapulars, your shoulder blades, it squeezes them together, that's retraction, and pulls them down, that's depression. So why is this important? Now, first practice this without doing the actual exercise dips, and then get on the bars or on the rings, wherever it is that you practice your dips, and try doing it. Try to roll a little bit your shoulders back and down, open up the chest, and keep this position. Now, this is the initial position you want to be using during dips. And why is that important? Well, because if you're doing your dips like this, as I see a lot of people, and of course I'm overdoing it a little bit here just to give you a good idea. Some people might even do it that extremely, some people do it less. No matter the case, if you don't practice this tip, you'll be doing it even a little bit, and that's going to be taking out of your results. So basically, let's do a little bit of anatomy here. Just stick with me, just to make you understand why this is important. Your pec major originates from your sternum and your clavicle, and it ties up all into here, your humerus, the bony, thick bone of your arm, specifically the higher position here, close to the shoulder. So it's basically like this big, imagine it as a band that's tied up on your sternum, your clavicle, and inserts into your humerus. And when you are keeping your shoulders closed, what happens is this muscle is kinda, it's not elongated enough. It's already small, and when you're doing your repetitions like that, from this like small contracted position, your chest doesn't get the opportunity to elongate and contract from that elongated position. Now, we know from sports science that a muscle, when it gets a full contraction from its most elongated position to its most contracted position, that's when it only produces maximum muscle hypertrophy. So what you want to do is keep that in mind. You want to begin from an opened up position, and as you're going downwards, your arm is getting closer to your body, you're creating that contraction. So your chest muscle basically elongates by initiating the exercise from this open chest position, and contracts. And that's why scapular retraction and depression is important. So just roll your shoulders back and down, get on the bars, and initiate the movement from that position. Now, tip number 2, before we start lowering our body down during dips, what you want to do is lean a little bit forward. So, because when you're straight, you're basically activating more your triceps. If you want to focus more on your chest, you want to lean a little bit forward, and as I like to say, switch on the chest muscles. So put your attention on the chest, just give it like a slight squeeze, just enough to wake it up. So from this position, shoulders back and down, body a little bit leaned towards the front, you are ready to initiate your first dip. I know this sounds probably like a little bit too much right now for a simple exercise as the dips, but I promise you it's super simple. If you just practice it for a little bit, you'll get the gist of it. Moving on, tip number 3 is avoiding that rebounds momentum. What I mean by that, as you are lowering your body downwards, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just drop their weight down and pull it up. What this creates is you kind of cheat the exercise by taking out a lot of tension, because what you're doing is you're using your muscles and tendons' elastic properties to bounce up and down. So as you're dropping down and pushing yourself up, this creates this rebounds momentum that takes a lot of muscle tension out of the game. The way to fix that is simply by pausing for a brief moment at the lower position of the exercise. Now, small parenthesis here, a lot of people ask me, how low should you go, during dips? Well, if your shoulder mobility sucks, if you feel like a lot of tension in your shoulder, when you're going below 90 degrees, don't go below 90 degrees, If you have really good shoulder mobility, you can go even a little bit lower. Now you want to avoid going lower than 125 degrees, because when you go lower than that, the muscle tension leaves your chest and your shoulders start to take over the work. So, you can go a little bit lower than 90 degrees, that's okay, but don't overdo it if you want to maintain that muscle tension on your chest. Tip number 5 is not locking out on the top position. So as you're pushing your body upwards at the highest position, you want to keep your elbows a little bit bent. Why is this important? Because when you lock out your elbows, what happens is your weight rests on your bones, Basically, these bones from the lower hand and the upper hand are locked, and the weight just rests on the elbow joint. To avoid this, keep the elbows a little bit bent, and this will once again help you maintain more muscle tension on the chest. So that was all. Let's recap very quickly today's tips. Tip number 1, you want to keep your shoulders back and down, keep the chest open, get on the bars, do that again. And tip number 2, lean a little bit forward. From there, put some mind to muscle awareness on your chest, so switch it on, as I like to say. Tip number 3, go slowly downwards, avoid that rebounding effect at the lowest position. You want to pause there for a brief moment and push yourself upwards again. At the top position, you want to avoid straightening your elbows, always keep them a little bit bent, again, to maintain that muscle tension. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll be focusing a lot more on mind to muscle techniques this year, and until next time, keep on training.